Come, let us prepare, make some good profits this week. Market left us some clues right here, and I will talk about something that happens 100% of the time whenever we hit all-time highs. So let's talk about that in today's video. But before that, a quick recap from where we started here, where I talked about how when the 5-day moving average crosses above the 20-day moving average, this is a sign of a possible uptrend, and you see the uptrend is happening right there, and we will most likely about 80 to 90% of the time retest the upper Bollinger because of that. And you see how we retested the upper Bollinger. Now at this point here, when the upper Bollinger was still flat here, I mentioned you have to wait for the 5-day moving average to catch up, and you have to see the upper Bollinger trending up together with the 5-day before we may continue a rally. And I mentioned how 5-day will become a support to start bouncing off while we trend up the upper Bollinger. And these are exactly what you see right here. Now, these are known as trend indicators. They are not trade indicators, but it's important because if you understand them, you too can use these strategies in your swing trading as well. Now, I have a playlist of the past week's analysis right here, including since we started on the uptrend here on what to be looking out for. So if you have some time, please watch that, study that, and see how we plan on a daily basis based on all these trend indicators and what to be looking out for. Now, this is a week that many were distracted by the meme stocks, and I warned you that that person could be an industry plant, and just take a look what happened to all the meme stocks this week. Absolutely pumped and dumped, and how many people would have lost so much money yet again because of that. Instead, I invite you, because this is a skill that you can properly learn. And I've shown you how you can make 5-figure profits every single day. And this is a skill you want to be learning because it will allow you to keep doing that. And when members ask me whether that can be done on a smaller account, I did it with 10,000 in my account, and thereafter 7,000 and 5,000, and with 3,000 I was able to double it within a day. Now this is a skill that you can properly learn, and you have to put in the work. And like what I tell you, you have to remind yourself about your identity, that you're here. Remember, the stock market is not a place where you get rich. The stock market is a complicated place with so much technicalities and knowledge, and that if you learn to master it, you will get rich. And you see, there is this in-between that's missing in some of our thought process. We just want to get rich, but we don't realize that we have to get good to get rich. And once you get good at that, you realize getting rich is not the priority anymore, because you get respected by your kids. You get respected by people around you. You respect yourself a little more because you have developed that skill, and you grow more confidence because you now have the ability to be making money on demand anytime you want. You have become a money-making machine. And it's so much better than just having money, isn't it? So I implore you, think a little longer term. And I know money is a pressing issue to many of us. Trust me, I've been poor, I know. But that can be mitigated by living frugally for a start, and that's what I did when I was younger. Keep your expenses low, keep your stress level low because of that. And you realize that there are many things in life that can make you happy that don't have to be expensive, because most of the time you're making other people happy and not yourself when you spend money, and you have to come to terms with that. And once you manage that in order and you focus on building the skill and that identity for yourself, become a better person, a better professional with a certain skill, and everything else will come along in your life. Everything will piece itself together. Why? Because you have sorted out your identity and you have lived life truthfully to yourself. So when you come onto the trading floor, I want you to be truthful to yourself. I want you to get real, be honest with yourself. Some of you are here to take revenge for something, I don't know, maybe a past episode of how the stock market has betrayed you. Or some of you come on here disrespecting the stock market and thinking that it will make you rich just because. So you have to come to terms. And what kind of trader do you want to be because of that? For me, I've always enjoyed the complex nature of the stock market, and gaining this knowledge, gaining this ability, and gaining this skill gave me access to the brightest, the richest, and the most talented people that I know in the world. And from then on, I knew that I belonged there because I could sit down and have a good conversation with these people. And from then, it helped me to want to do more, study more, and become better at this. And I realized I could make money. It could sustain my lifestyle. It could give me more than I desire. It could also give me more to help others. And it made me a better person because it has revealed a lot of inadequacies that I have that I was projecting on the trading floor. And it helped me come to terms with myself better as a person, as a human being. And this is why I always say that trading saved my life, because God led me to this and used this as an avenue to reform me, to refine me. So for most of you believers out there, you have to also surrender this process and trust that God is also using this to lead you, and you have to surrender. And surrendering means to humble yourself, and if it means to do even the most basic of paper trading, for example, trading with a small account, to grow, instead of just thinking about the big money, then you have to learn to humble yourself. You have to learn to trust the process, and you have to learn to trust God. So remember, this is a skill. You must be able to put in the right identity before you start embarking on this journey. Otherwise, the further you are away from the destination, the longer the detour you have to take back in order to head back to the right direction. That if you set sail, then you're just 1 degree off from the destination. After several hours, you'll be thousands of miles away from where you're supposed to be. So you have to set your bearings right, and you have to start properly. And I implore you, if you're still gambling, if you're still trying to ride on to the wrong values of the stock market, in the name of fun, some of you, but this is no fun for me. This is how I feed my family. If this is fun for you, all power to you, because this can be a form of entertainment, sure, but many of us are feeding our families with this, or preserving our wealth for generations to come. And there is a certain utility to the stock market, and if you learned how it works, you will use it to your advantage. So as we approach a new week, set your bearings right again, not just with yourself, your identity in the stock market, with God as well. And we go again. We keep on going. That's life. No matter how hard we get hit, we get back up stronger this time. We don't stop. We pick ourselves up, because the day you cannot get up anymore is the day that it all ends. Don't give up. Keep going. And we got this. We got this. Now, where do we go from here? Now, very simply, let's just take a look at Friday's action. And you see, Friday we started chopping quite heavily right here. And there were several clues that you had to look out for. Right, because firstly we were tapering in that yellow, and you see that further tapering in that blue. Now this is where you saw that there was a nested head and shoulder pattern right there. Can you see the nested head and shoulder pattern? If you were to translate this in the 1 minute chart, you see it quite clearly right here, and we started tapering a little further here like that. So you see there is this nested head and shoulder pattern that started forming. 30-minute chart tells me everything I need to know. Right, there was this yellow, and then we started tapering in that blue. So once you see this nested head and shoulder pattern, right, but also you have to respect the magenta. That's exactly where we got the bounce on Friday. So you see the magenta and the other algorithms are competing in this range here. And that's what we want to pay attention to the next week right here. Now, if this continues heading up, you have to remember that there will be certainty in that green algorithm right there. And you have to be looking out for the liquidity levels on building that liquidity up, right? So that includes this level here. So if the market wants to head up, it will be ideal if we have some retracement before we head up here, or you allow the cup to start closing before we see the magenta and the green algorithm building more liquidity on the way up here. So pay close attention to that if this wants to continue heading up. Now, otherwise, if the bulls need to build more liquidity, allow them to do so. That's fine, right? So allow the market to build more liquidity. This can absolutely also happen as it digs a little deeper. Because remember, I was talking about the 5-day moving average, and there's a very important indicator right there. So something that happens all the time when we retest the all-time highs will be that we always retest the 5-day moving average. Always. the market will always find the 5-day moving average that will naturally be trending up as well. And so that's something I mentioned about once we retested this high, isn't it? That you allow the 5-day moving average to start catching up. And that's exactly what's happening right here. So 5-day moving average will open close to where the close of the cup is, about the 525, 526 level here. So this is why I mentioned if this wants to head up, it can absolutely take its time and rebuild more liquidity on the way up here. So you have to pay close attention to that. Now, if this wants to continue heading down, now you see how the yellow and the blue algorithm has started building more liquidity. So if this wants to head down, you know where the liquidity levels are, right? But we want to be waiting more for the blue. And if this wants to head down, we do have cups to start closing. So the first will be at this 525 level, and that will be where the 5-day moving average will trend up to. And if this truly wants to head down, you will see the cup closing, and thereafter allow the blue and the yellow algorithm to start forming, building liquidity on the way down. Now there is several gaps below, so if this wants to go down, especially with a negative catalyst, so you have to be looking out for a negative catalyst, this will head down very heavily. But before that, you cannot assume and have a bias that this is going down. You have to be waiting level by level, and especially with the 5-day moving average, that's the most important thing you want to be looking out for if this wants to head down. Do have Nvidia reporting earnings, and that will be where the market will be looking out for, as well as the FOMC meeting minutes on Wednesday. So pay close attention to these news events that will influence the market, but otherwise pay close attention, 5-day moving average, and looking out for the algorithms right there. And remember, this is a skill. You want to be focusing on building the skill. So thank you very much for watching. See you closer to open.